Jamunatiravanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Srila Prabhupada ki, Shri Rukmini Dwarkadesh ki, Shri Jagannath Baldev Subhadramai ki, Shri Gaurnitai ki, ISKCON New Dwarkadam ki, Nittai Gaur Premanandi. Om Jnanatimirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurun Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Mukam Karoti Vachalam Pangum Langaite Girim Yat Kripa Tamaham Bande Shri Gurun Dinataranam Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaura Bhakta Brinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, everyone. It's a pleasure to be here in Los Angeles and ISKCON New Dwarkadam. It's my second time here, actually. I was here in the middle of 2022, and it was a wonderful experience, so I returned. A historical place for ISKCON. It's saw outside. It's the Western headquarters of the International Society for Krishna Consciousness, a place with a lot of history. So much has happened here. Of course, Srila Prabhupada has his quarters here, and it was the hub of so much activity over the past 50 plus years. Srila Prabhupada was so grateful to the US. At one point, he had trouble getting a green card, and so he got Tamal Krishna Maharaj onto the case. He was a troubleshooter. Whenever there was something difficult to be done, whenever something was looking like it was impossible, then Tamal Krishna Maharaj was the man. So, by the way, who's new here? Who's here for the first time? For the first time. Oh, round of applause. Welcome. So hopefully I won't use too much jargon. Some of the names may be unfamiliar, but hopefully you can follow what I'm speaking about. The rest of you will be or many of you will be more familiar, I think. So Tamal Krishna Maharaj was one of Srila Prabhupada's disciples, an early disciple, and someone who was like his right-hand man. So Tamal Krishna Maharaj was on the case. He was getting Prabhupada's green card. So one day he burst into the room and he said, Srila Prabhupada, I've got the green card. I've got your green card. Customs clear, immigration clear, you can go back to America. Srila Prabhupada was so emotional. He said, I owe so much to the United States of America. America's given manpower, it's given finance, it's given so much so that I could expand and grow this mission of sharing Krishna consciousness, sharing the Vedic culture with the people of the world. Prabhupada became teary. He was so emotional. So then Tamal Krishna Maharaj said, Srila Prabhupada, sometimes you say that you're like a cow who's giving milk, constantly giving milk. But you never stop, you never tire, you're always giving and giving and giving. Srila Prabhupada said, yes, it's because I'm a Sarabi cow. A Sarabi cow gives milk unlimitedly in the Vedic literatures. So Srila Prabhupada was giving, he was giving so much. This was his lifeblood. He came to give. And he came to give a very deep, rich culture. He was very brave. Once he arrived in the UK, and by that time Krishna consciousness had grown to some degree, so there was quite a lot of fanfare. Many devotees went there to visit Srila Prabhupada to the airport, and also some reporters were there. So there was one British reporter, and I'm from England, so I can do the accent somewhat well. He said, so Swamiji, what brings you to British shores? Srila Prabhupada looked at him. When Srila Prabhupada gave an answer, he addressed not just the question, but he sussed out, he analyzed the individual, and he looked at the intention behind the question. So he gave a deep answer. He said, you Britishers, you came to India, you took gold, emeralds, diamonds, rubies, sapphires. You even took the Kohinoor, if you've heard of the Kohinoor, it's the diamond of all diamonds. A cursed diamond, but a diamond. And he said, you took everything, but you forgot the most valuable jewel of them all. The most important of all diamonds. You forgot the Vedic literatures, you forgot the Srimad Bhagavatam, the Bhagavad Gita, and I've come to your shores to give it to you. Yeah. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. So Srila Prabhupada was like a lion. He wasn't fearful of anyone or anything because he knew he had Krishna with him. His name was Abhay Charanaravinda. Someone who's fearless because they have taken complete shelter of the lotus feet of the Lord. So he could go anywhere, say anything to anyone. He wasn't fearful. Once he was at some lord's house, again in the UK, and it was a very fine dining kind of experience, a plate, knife, fork, spoons, the whole, different glasses for different beverages, the whole lot, the works. And then and they started eating, and the disciples were using knife and fork, and Srila Prabhupada was using his hands. So one of the disciples whispered to Srila Prabhupada, Prabhupada, we're meant to use the knife and fork. Srila Prabhupada said, I didn't come here to adopt a culture. I came here to give a culture, to give real culture to the people of the world. It's very scientific. Using the hands is very scientific. I won't go into the science of it right now. But Srila Prabhupada was like a lion. He was very strong. People sometimes naturally to surrender to a person can be difficult. It's not easy to do. So once there was a devotee, he became Atma Tattva Prabhu, but he just joined. Actually, he was a sannyasi in another movement, but he left and joined ISKCON. So he was a little skeptical of things. And on one occasion, Srila Prabhupada was coming. He was coming to the temple, and there was a lot of preparation, a lot of buzz in the temple. Everyone was really excited. Srila Prabhupada is coming, Srila Prabhupada is coming. And the temple president was asking and looking at the devotees, who wants to get initiated? So they asked Atma Tattva Prabhu, do you want to get initiated? And he was saying, I'll think about it. I'll think about it. He wasn't sure. So then there were some other devotees getting initiated. They were encouraging him, but he was still unsure. So then Srila Prabhupada, the day came, Srila Prabhupada arrived. He arrived to the temple. He sat down, like on a beautiful Vyasasan like this, and the devotees started doing Guru Puja. They're doing Arti. They're singing Guru Puja. And he was skeptical. So much fanfare, so much worship for a person, for what seems to be an ordinary human being. So then he was thinking, and then he saw the devotees were singing Shri Guru Charana Padma Kevala Bhaktisiddhanta. And they were singing the lines of the Guru Puja, which we all know. Such worship. But then he saw Srila Prabhupada was also singing. He was also singing when they were singing. In the response, Srila Prabhupada was also singing. He was also singing Shri Guru Charana Padma. So then he asked the devotee next to him, hey, we're singing, but why is he singing? Is he singing for himself? And the devotee said, no, he's singing for his spiritual master. And his spiritual master sings for his spiritual master. Everyone is a servant. Ultimately, Ekale Ishvara Krishna Ara Sabhabritya. Everyone is a servant of ultimately Krishna. So we're all servants here. He's singing to his spiritual master. When Atma Tattva Prabhu heard this, his heart melted. He thought, this is it. This is it. And he agreed, I'll take initiation. I want initiation from this spiritual master. So today is the disappearance day of Srila Prabhupada's spiritual master, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Sarasvati Thakura. Srila Prabhupada was a real follower of his spiritual master. He describes in 241 Bhagavad Gita, Vyavasayatmika buddhi ekeha guru nandana, that one should be fixed in one's intelligence. Krishna says to Arjun. Krishna is trying to convince Arjun, fight this war. This war will allow good to preside over evil. Fight this war, Krishna is telling Arjun. So he's telling him, become fixed, single-pointed in your focus. Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, who's another guru in the line, in the chain of preceptors, he explains that this refers, or this can be understood to be how the disciple is in relation to his spiritual master. He takes the instructions of his spiritual master to heart, and he takes those instructions as his life and soul. Srila Prabhupada lived by this. And so we can see that the values, or the way Srila Prabhupada shared Krishna consciousness, the values he lived by, what he taught to his disciples, were very much in line with the teachings of Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Sarasvati Thakur, his spiritual master. So they say, like father, like son. Like father, like son. Srila Prabhupada was so much akin. So he gave us 4 mottos. He gave us so many teachings, but he summarized a lot of that in 4 mottos. He said, utility is a principle. He said, books are the basis. Purity is the essence. And preaching is the essence. Purity is a force. Okay, let's do them again. So utility is a principle, books are the basis, purity is a force, and preaching is the essence. So these 4 principles Srila Prabhupada gave to us as guiding lights in our own lives, in practicing Krishna consciousness. And this was really exhibited by Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Sarasvati Thakur. So utility is the principle. Once there was one of Sarasvati Thakur's brahmacharis, he was going out doing madhukari, he was begging. This is tradition for brahmacharis. They go out to beg on behalf of the spiritual master. This really inculcates a humility in the heart, a dependence on the Lord. So he was out begging, and someone in an act of spite, he gave him ashes. He gave the brahmachari ashes. So the brahmachari came home with whatever else he had begged and some ashes, and he reported everything he had received to his spiritual master. Bhaktisiddhanta Sarasvati Thakur said, take the ashes and use it to wash the pots. So utility is the principle. On another occasion, they were renovating a temple in Alarnath. Alarnath is near Jagannath Puri in East India, Odisha. This temple is very famous. During the after the Snan Yatra, Lord Jagannath gets a cold, so he goes into hiding in Gundicha. So he's not visible. So then Chaitanya Mahaprabhu would go to Alarnath. There was a beautiful deity of Lord Narayan there, and he would go there and he would see Shyam Sundar Krishna, the Lord of his heart. He would spend time in this temple, Alarnath. So they were renovating this temple under Bhaktisiddhanta Sarasvati Thakur's guidance. But the workers were spending a lot of time rolling their bidis. Bidis are Indian, like cheap Indian cigarettes. So then Bhaktisiddhanta Sarasvati Thakur himself, he went there and he was rolling their bidis, their cigarettes, so they could smoke and then get on with the job. He wanted this temple to be done quickly. He was ready to roll cigarettes for workers. Another occasion, they had invited the governor of Bengal. He was some British lord or something, and they invited him for some occasion. Actually, he was inviting high society to key events, because this would show those in India that actually we're recognized, we're authorized, and this was a great way to bring notoriety to his mission. So he invited the governor of Bengal, and he said to his disciples, serve him meat. They're so accustomed to eating meat, they don't like vegetarian food, serve him meat. And then he said that when you're preaching abroad, he sent some of his disciples abroad for preaching, for sharing Krishna consciousness. He said, when you're preaching abroad, you can do the same. When the disciples said, but this could be controversial, this could attract criticism, Bhaktisiddhanta Sarasvati Thakur said, I've been planning this for 1,000 births. I've been planning all of this for 1,000 births. I'm ready to do anything in order to share Krishna consciousness with the world, to share Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's message with the world. So he was very much, utility is the principle. Books are the basis. Of course, we all know the story in the Bagh Bazaar temple. Sarasvati Thakura built this beautiful marble temple in the heart of Calcutta, a very opulent temple, because very quickly they gained a lot of following, and they were ready to build this beautiful temple. It was the talk of the town. Everyone was talking about this marble temple. But they were fighting. His disciples were fighting over who gets which room. You know, they want the best room in the best location, and so on and so forth. So then he said, forget this. Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur said, I don't want this temple. Sell the marble, sell the temple, and use the money to print books. So he said, there's fire in the mutt. There's fire. They're all fighting. Sell it and print books. So he really emphasized the Brihat Madanga. So he said, okay, of course, Harinam Sankirtan, to go from town to town, village to village, doing Harinam, sharing the holy name with the people of the world. Prithivitiyachayata Nagaradi Gram. Every town and village should hear the holy name of the Lord. But he said, this is Brihat Madanga. This is the big Madanga. Because the Harinam can be heard for a few blocks. But the written word, books, they will travel far and wide. You give a book to someone here in LA, they'll travel to the other side of the world. They'll read it themselves, they'll share it with others. The written word goes further and further. So books are the basis. On one occasion, Srila Prabhupada, quite early on in his mission, he was writing manuscripts for his books, but he needed someone to type them up. And he found someone who had been studied English. His name was Howard. He became Hayagriva. So he gave Hayagriva a few manuscripts to type up and correct. And he came back a day or two later with everything complete, nicely typed out. And Howard said to Srila Prabhupada, do you have anything else? Do you have any more? Srila Prabhupada said, more? I have more. So he took him to his cupboard, and he opened the cupboard, and it was lined with manuscripts. He said, all of this needs to be typed. Howard's eyes looked wide, and he said, this is a whole lifetime's work. Srila Prabhupada said, no, many lifetimes' work. So Srila Prabhupada was so much into book translation, book publication, and book distribution, just like his spiritual master. Purity is the force. Srila Prabhupada gave us this principle, purity is the force. Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur wanted to preach. He wanted to give the world Krishna consciousness. This was his mission. Not just India, not just Bengal, not just India, but the world. But before he began his mission, he took a vow to chant 1 billion names. That means almost 10 years, 8.5 years, chanting 3 lakh names every day, meaning 192 rounds every day. Who chants 16 rounds here? Hands. 16 times 24. No, is that right? 16 times 12. 16 times 12 is 192. So you do 16 rounds in one day, times that by 12 in one day. It's 192 rounds, Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur. And he did that every day for 8.5 years. That's 1 billion names. This was in preparation for his preaching mission. Purity is the force. It gives us a potency in order to really be instruments. Nimitta matra bhavya savya sachin. To really, Krishna says to Arjuna, become my instrument. How do we really become instruments of the Lord? We have to have deep, absorbed spiritual practice. We learn this from Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur. On one occasion there was a disciple, he was going out to collect donations for the mission. And he was telling people that we feed thousands of homeless people every day. We have a leper house and we have 1,000 lepers that we're maintaining. we do so many good works, but it wasn't true. So he came back with a bag full of donations. But when Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur found out that he had been doing it in a dishonest way, he was very upset. And he said, I'm not interested in this money. Purity is the force. So this is Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur's teaching. And then finally, preaching is the essence. Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur was a fierce preacher. He wanted the world to receive Krishna consciousness. Srila Prabhupada wrote to his spiritual master in early December 1936, asking him for some instruction. What should I do? Some days later, on December the 13th, Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur wrote back to him. He said, I want you to go and preach in the Western world. Preach in the Western world. And on December the 31st, 1936, 18 days later, Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur left the world. So this was his parting instruction to Srila Prabhupada. It was his first instruction, and it was his last instruction. 1922, right? Yeah. In Altadanga Road Junction, Srila Prabhupada was invited by Narendranath, his friend. He said, there's a holy man, he's come and he's preaching. He's sharing Krishna Katha. I'm sure you'll be interested. But in Prabhupada's youth, he had lost interest in these holy men. His father would invite so many holy men, so-called holy men, to his home. He would feed them. He would give them a donation. And he would ask all of them. Srila Prabhupada said, I've got two fathers. His biological father loved him so much, gave him so much, gave him Krishna. He would ask all of these holy men, please bless my son. Please bless my son that he can become a servant of Srimati Radharani. This was Prabhupada's father's request to all of these holy men. But then Prabhupada saw that these holy men were up to no good. So he lost faith in these people. So then when he heard about Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur coming along, doing some lectures, he said to Narendranath, I don't want to go. He said to his friend, I'm not interested in these holy men. I've had enough of them. But he said, this one is special. This one is unique. This one is like no other. Come, you won't regret it. So he almost dragged him to come along. Srila Prabhupada went. And he heard this message. But he had doubts. Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur was saying, you're English speaking. Go to the Western world. This message has to go across the entire globe. It shouldn't be contained just within India. Prabhupada put his hand up and he said, but how? Until Prabhupada was a Gandhian at the time. He said, how? How can this message go far and wide until and unless we are under British rule? Until we're subjugated by the Brits, we cannot. This message cannot go. Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur gave a roaring reply. He said, there is nothing on this planet, there is no material impediment which can stop the onward march of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's mission. This will go, whatever the case, whatever the political, social, economic climate, this message will go and travel the seven seas. When Srila Prabhupada heard this faith, this conviction, this strength, he said he accepted Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur in his heart as his spiritual master, as his father. So this preaching spirit was so beautifully exhibited by Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur. When one disciple said that this mission should go to every town and village, Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur said, no, this message should go to every heart of every individual, every heart. He said that every member of the mat, every member of his society, they should be ready to give up 200 gallons of blood. 200 gallons of blood. I work in litres, so I'm just calculating that it's almost 800 litres. 200 gallons of blood in order to nourish the corpus of society and to give them Krishna consciousness. This was Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur's preaching spirit. Srila Prabhupada took this spirit and he took it into his heart. He said, I want to preach. So unlike any of his godbrothers, he carried this. He received the message in 1922. They say that in 1922, Srila Prabhupada first met Bhaktisiddhanta Sarasvati Thakura. In 1933, Srila Prabhupada took initiation from Bhaktisiddhanta Sarasvati Thakura. In 1944, Srila Prabhupada, you see 11 years, yeah? In 1944, he started the Back to Godhead magazine. In 1955, Srila Prabhupada renounced married life. He took a step back. He took Vanaprastha ashram, heading for sannyas. 1966, he instituted ISKCON, established ISKCON. And 1977, he departed the world, leaving us with so many wonderful instructions, guidance and insight on how we too can follow in his footsteps. And in that way, follow in the footsteps of his illustrious spiritual master, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Sarasvati Thakura. So we're so fortunate to be connected with such an amazing chain of spiritual preceptors who have given us such a wealth, not just knowledge, but realized knowledge, not just guidance or instructions on how to live, but an amazing example on how to live a perfect life, a life of giving, a life of sharing the most valuable gem there is to be shared. So today's a wonderful day where we can reflect on these wonderful gifts that we've received. Bhaktisiddhanta Sarasvati Thakur, he was more about, he said, platform speakers. Like right now I'm sitting on this Vyasasan, I'm speaking to almost 100 people, I'm a platform speaker. He said, this is fine, this is all good, and it has some value. But he said, actually, we need people who can infect and change in the lives of individuals, who can actually help to change people's hearts. So he said, his mission, he said, if I can make one pure devotee, if I can just make one pure devotee, I don't mind, we can sell all of the temples, we can give everything else up, but if we make one pure devotee, then I will consider my life to be successful. So purity is the force. This was really his emphasis. So many things that we can learn from these great souls. He also said that you can burn all of the books on this planet. Burn everything. They're not required. He said, if we just have the Srimad Bhagavatam, then it's enough. On another occasion, or maybe I hear, you hear different stories, he said, you just need the Caitanya Charitamrita, but leave everything else aside. If you just have this one literature, then you have enough. You have enough for your life to become perfect, to go back home, back to Godhead. He was a real purist and very fearless. So on this day we honor him, we beg him to empower us, to become his instrument, so that we too can follow in his line and be instruments in sharing Krishna consciousness. Right now is a Srila Prabhupada marathon. So in the month to Christmas, we make a special effort in order to share this Krishna consciousness mission. This is the greatest gift to humanity. People have everything. We're in America. People have houses and cars and partners and clothes and everything else that the world aspires for. There's no lack in that regard. But at the end of the day, who's happy? Who's satisfied? Do these things actually satisfy? Of course, we will know the answer. That's part of the reason why we're here. Because we know there's something more to life. There's something deeper. There's a deeper essence. And that essence is to learn how to love Krishna. And that is the greatest gift to mankind. And therefore, during this month, we make a special effort to give this wisdom to the people of the world. Srila Prabhupada said that he came to British shores in order to give what they had forgotten to take. In the same way, we can be instruments in Srila Prabhupada's hands. We can be instruments in Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Sarasvati Thakur's hands, and thereby instruments in the hands of Shri Gaura Nitai, Shri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. His mission was that everyone should receive this message. At least they should receive the opportunity of receiving this message. Everyone knows about the Bible and everyone knows about the Quran. Everyone knows about the Torah in this world. In the same way, the Bhagavad Gita should become a household name. So at least everyone has the option, the opportunity to know about this message. This was the desire, the specific desire of Bhaktisiddhanta Sarasvati Thakur's father and grand spiritual master, Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur. He had a vision that one day the world will converge in Mayapur, the home of Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu. Americans, Europeans, Australians, the whole world would come together in Mayapur, and they would chant the glories, Jai Sachinandana Gaura Hari. They would chant the names of Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu. So this, Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur took this into his heart from Bhaktivinoda Thakur. He then implanted this into the heart of Srila Prabhupada, and then Srila Prabhupada is implanting it into our hearts. As his sincere followers, it is our duty, and I wouldn't even say duty, it's our birthright. This is not just a duty, this is not something we have to do, this is something that we have the opportunity to do. This is an opportunity for us all to engage in this mission and become blessed. To become blessed, to be part of such an illustrious, amazing chain of spiritual masters who are giving from their heart. They're giving such a wonderful gift to humanity. What is better than this? What is more valuable than this? When people say no, you're trying to give them the book and they say no. Sometimes devotees become disheartened. They become discouraged. But imagine if you're giving people $50 notes and someone says, no thanks. How are you going to feel? Poor him, poor her. Bad decision. What are they thinking? They don't know how valuable this is, obviously. Is the Bhagavad Gita and the wisdom therein more valuable than a $50 note? Of course. So we're sharing, we're offering the most valuable gift to humanity. So if devotees themselves can go out on the streets and the parking lots of LA and beyond and distribute Bhagavad Gitas to the people of the world on the way to work, at work, wherever you are, when you're going shopping, take a book with you and give it to someone. It's the greatest gift. It's the greatest gift to humanity. And it's a wonderful opportunity to engage in this mission, particularly during this month. And if you do it during this month, many devotees, they take a vow. I want to do one book a day. For a month, I'll do one book a day. Okay, we're on the 7th of December. For the rest of the month, or however long you can, do one book a day. And I promise you, you will experience miracles. You will experience magic. Once, I'm just reminded as I'm speaking about this, Shyam Sundar Prabhu, they had a center, like they had not a center, like not a storefront. They had a place which they're using as a temple. They had to pay the rent. And their backs were against the wall. They didn't know how they were going to pay the rent. And the due date was coming. The next day the rent was due and they were sitting there thinking, we have no idea how we're going to pay the rent tomorrow. They went to sleep. The next morning they got up. They were just going to Mangalarti, just down the road. As they were walking down the road, maybe some of you have heard this story, they were walking down the road, $100 bills were just floating down the street. They started running and collecting these $100 bills. That was Krishna. That was Krishna. Krishna was just sending, has anyone ever seen $100 bills? Even $100 bill floating down the street? I haven't. Krishna sent them not just one but multiple $100 bills floating down the street so they could pay the rent. That was Krishna saying, hey, you're serving me, I got your back. I'm taking care of you. Shyam Sundar Prabhu says, this is in Prabhupada Memories, he says that this mood that we had in those 60s and 70s, in those early days, that mood was so special. Because Krishna was intervening in our lives constantly. These miracles were happening all the time. They were happening so often, we began to expect these miracles. They didn't feel like miracles anymore almost, because a miracle is like, a once in a lifetime event, a rare event. We began to expect miracles in our lives because we were surrendering to Krishna, because we were giving our lives in such a way that Krishna was impelled to reciprocate with us. And then the sad thing he says, and this is 25 years ago, he's recording this memory, he says, I feel like this mood is dying out in our mission today, in our movement today. He said, I feel like this mood is dying out. That was 25 years ago. So then I think, how about now? So experiencing our acharyas are giving us an opportunity to experience Krishna directly in our lives, Krishna's hand in our lives. So this is what we have. This is the gift. They've given us so many wonderful, amazing gifts. Let us cherish those and let us give ourselves. Let us give ourselves to this mission and become their instruments, become empowered by them, to become their instruments, to become satisfying instruments, vessels for their mercy. So George Harrison. So Prabhupada in 1970, he decided, okay, people got to know who Krishna is. Most of the people had no idea who Krishna is. The devotees were chanting Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. But who's this Krishna? Who's this Rama? What is this all about? They didn't really know. Of course, the 10th canto of the Srimad Bhagavatam is all about Krishna. But Prabhupada was going to take some time before he reached the 10th canto, and therefore he wrote a summary study of that 10th canto in the form of the Krishna book. But then they had to print the Krishna book. And this was a time when money wasn't, it wasn't the click of a finger. So then they thought, how are we going to get the money to print the Krishna book? So then Srila Prabhupada, Shyam Sundar Prabhu, again, he was cultivating George Harrison of the Beatles. Naturally, George Harrison is rich and famous. So people were coming to him. Why do you approach a rich and famous person? Because you want a piece of his wealth, you want a piece of his fame. George Harrison had this faith that the devotees are different. They're spiritual people. They're not interested in these material things. But then Prabhupada said to Shyam Sundar Prabhu, ask George for the money. Shyam Sundar Prabhu said to himself, I can't do it. Prabhupada, I can't do it. I don't want to do it. I'm cultivating George. And his rule was, I never ask him for anything. I never ask him for anything. And he hadn't asked him for anything. But now suddenly, Prabhupada said, ask him for the money to print Krishna book. And I think it was £21,000. And if anyone knows the exact figure, $19,000. Whatever it was in those days, 40, 50 years ago, it was a lot of money. A lot of money. So Shyam Sundar Prabhu is like his heart's pumping. He describes, he doesn't want to do it. The conversation, he meets him, the conversation goes on, and he's thinking, I don't want to ask. But my spiritual master said, whatever the spiritual master says is life and soul. Whatever he says is the absolute truth. So the devotees had that faith in their spiritual master, in Srila Prabhupada. Whatever my spiritual master says is the absolute truth. There's no doubt. There's an absolute conviction. So then he asks him, well, long introduction, and he presents, we really want to print this Krishna book. This is going to be a game changer. This is so important. Srila Prabhupada really wants this. And George feels it. He knows where this is going. His smile begins to turn into a little, And then Shyam Sundar says, can you help? Can you give us some money to print the Krishna book? And then George says, how much? I think this is, he says, how much? And he says, whatever it is, $19,000. And then George's face just changes. He's just dejected. And then suddenly, the lights go out. Suddenly, who knows where there was some thunder, lightning, the lights go out. And no one knows what's going on. Like, what just happened there? At that very moment, the lights go out. And then eventually, when the lights go back on, George's face is suddenly smiling. And he said, after that, how can I refuse? How can I say no? That was Krishna. That was Krishna. That was Krishna coming in at that exact moment. Lights went out. He's saying, George, do this. George, do this. So the devotees experienced so many wonderful miracles. And in that way, the Krishna book was published in 1970, and the devotees were in ecstasy. Bhrigupati Prabhu probably knows. They're in ecstasy distributing the Krishna book. It was in the Krishna book trilogy, 3 parts, and distributing the glories of Krishna. Everyone should know about Krishna. There is no other tradition on the planet that has more insight into the name, form, qualities, abode, associates of Krishna. It's priceless. The world has to know about this. So actually, I'm traveling, I'm touring right now. I'm almost out of time, so I'm going to say a few words about some books that I've come. I'm just sharing these books with the devotees. Srila Prabhupada's books are number 1. They're the priority in our movement. And everyone should read, and not just read, but study Srila Prabhupada's books. But then Srila Prabhupada also instructed his disciples to write. And so my own spiritual master, he's Shivram Swami. Many of you will know him. He's written books about Krishna in pursuance of Srila Prabhupada's Krishna book to help devotees gain further insight into the name, form, qualities, abode, and associates of Krishna, so that we can absorb our minds, absorb our consciousness more and more in Krishna. So these books, it's a set of books, 9 volumes. It's called the Navavraj Mahima. It's the glories of Vrindavan, Krishna's pastimes in Vrindavan. There's 600 beautiful, amazing pastimes of Krishna. Many devotees have never heard before because it's based on the writings of our illustrious acharyas. They're beautiful books, written very for easy reading. It's 3 lines per paragraph. They're good for children and adults, and they help us to read about Krishna, to hear about Krishna, to become absorbed in Krishna, to become obsessed with Krishna. Srila Prabhupada said that we should become mad after Krishna. And when we're mad after Krishna ourselves, then that will be infectious. So then when we're sharing this with others, the glee in our heart, it will infect others. They won't be able to resist it. So that's the idea behind these books. They're beautiful, they're very well made. We're touring with them, we have them here, and there's a table outside. So myself and my companion will be outside sharing these after this talk. Are there any comments, questions, corrections? Yes, Prabhu. The mic.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu. Thank you. That was very inspiring personally, and a lot of things you said resonated with me at the right time, so I really appreciate you. My question or slight doubt I had was the example that you gave with Bhaktisiddhanta. When he had accepted money that wasn't, I guess, pure, and he refused, I can see on one side he was in a position of kind of leadership, so he had to lead by example, but I mean, in our society today, and also during Prabhupada's time, there was many examples of money that was given to the temple that wasn't, anything really tied to spiritual or Bhagavad Gita or knowledge or that sort. So, and you say utility is the principle. So how do we
at the end of the day, which money is pure? You're working a job in an IT company, and there is so much karma associated with everything we do in today's world. So money itself is not pure. But of course, yes, by giving it to Krishna, it becomes purified. Krishna is the all-pure. He's the ultimate purifying agent. But Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakura here, he's making a point. He's trying to teach his disciples that purity is the force. that by acting in an exemplary way, once there was a sage, a mother came to him and said, "My son is eating too many sweets. Please can you stop him instruct him, stop eating sweets." The sage said, "Come back in 2 weeks' time." So they came back in 2 weeks' time, and then the mother said, "Hey, can you tell my son?" And he said, "Okay, young man, stop eating too many sweets." So the mother asked, "But why? Why do you have to wait 2 weeks?" And he said, "Because 2 weeks ago I was eating too many sweets." Yeah? So practice what you preach. How can we preach pure principles when we're not pure ourselves, when we're not living a pure life ourselves? So he's trying to instruct his disciples. Purity is the force. So it's to make a certain point to a certain person at a certain time. In different time, place, circumstance, an acharya or a teacher may give certain instructions, and we should take those instructions for that, at face value. Very valuable. Both are valuable. Both instructions are valuable. Of course, we can use anything in Krishna's service, yukta vairagya, that's there. At the same time, he wants to teach disciple and the world. Purity is the force. Yes, Prabhu, please.
On that point, in this was the mid-70s, devotees were using charity lines to get donations, and one of them was, "We're feeding refugees in Bangladesh." That was quite common. So when Prabhupada heard about that, he said, well, whatever money is collected on that pretext has to be given for that purpose.
Absolutely.
That's historical.
Yes.
Well, I just wonder if there's enough time. How can you explain about, is there any precedent of Indian culture bringing knowledge to the West? It seems like before Prabhupada, they didn't have that mood. Like the Judeo-Christian, other religious groups, they've been conveying their messages for years. And, Prabhupada had some trouble with that, with his own,
Yes.
Brahmins. Can you
Yes.
explain
Sure.
why?
So sometimes ISKCON is accused of proselytizing, of forcing people, pushing the ancient Vedic culture onto the people. Why do we do that? Why do we go out and give people the Bhagavad Gita and other literatures? What is the purpose? So is there any precedent for it? Well, in one sense, Parashurama is described, he rid the planet, or he rid the region of the Kshatriyas 21 times because they were not following the principles properly. So then they went all across the world and they took with them the Vedic culture. But of course that became kind of degraded over time. But that's why we see remnants of the Vedic culture all over the world. There's evidence of it. But in terms of a coordinated effort to share this Vedic culture with the people of the world, I personally don't know of any of any significant events or personalities who have done this. Of course, Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakura had various disciples who came. Bon Maharaj was one, who came to the West in order to share in the 1920s and 30s, but they weren't so successful. Our mission is not to force anything upon anyone. Our mission is to make this culture available. People haven't even heard of the Bhagavad Gita. They should at least know about it. They should know of its existence. They should know of the basic tenets and the principles that it shares. Many people consider it to be a book of war. It's set on a battlefield. Arjuna, Krishna, God, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, is telling his disciple Arjuna, fight and kill. But how many times have we seen a religious war based on the Bhagavad Gita? Never. Because that's not the principle that it's actually talking about. If anyone reads a little bit deeper, then they'll see that actually this is not a book of war, this is a book of humanity, and it's a book of God consciousness. So what we're doing is we're making the most ancient, deep, penetrating wisdom of the planet available to the people of the world. That's our mission. Yes, Prabhu.
Ramanuja Acharya, he demonstrated the spirit. The only anecdote I could recall that Prabhupada referred to, in his lectures at least, was this one where he received the instruction, he received the mantra from his spiritual master, and the spiritual master told him, but don't make this is private, I'm telling you this, but don't, it's not for everybody else. He said, well, what's that? Why is that? Because by chanting this mantra, one becomes liberated. So then Ramanujacharya just went on top of the temple or something, and he started yelling out to everybody, please listen, chant this mantra. What was it? Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. You'll be liberated,
Yes.
And then that word got back to his spiritual master, and his spiritual master, well, why'd you do that? I told you, this, that's just the opposite. He said, well, if this mantra is going to liberate people, then let me go to hell, but I want to see everybody liberated. So he demonstrated the spirit anyway.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Beautiful. Thank you so much. Last question at the back, and then I guess we should stop the devotees.
Thank you for your enlightening class. My question is, you said that Bhaktisiddhanta Sarasvati Maharaj chanted 1 billion names before preaching. That means that his preaching was empowered by Krishna. So what's the message for the devotees who are not yet there, are still in Anartha Nivritti phase and want to preach? Because will it be same power? You know what I mean here.
Thank you very much for the question. Yes, 1 billion names. It's a lot of chanting. So Srila Prabhupada, when he first came to the West, he said, okay, his intention was that devotees would chant 64 rounds every day. That's basically 8 hours of chanting. But when he saw the mood, the energy of the people, they need to get up and do something. They're active. They need to create. They need to make something happen. They need to move the material energy. So he said, okay. Then he thought about 32 rounds. That was too much. But he said, okay, 16 is a minimum. So Srila Prabhupada gave us the formula. He said, chant 16 rounds, follow the 4 regulative principles, and you'll go back to Godhead. This is Acharya Upasana. This is the instruction of our Acharya. The instructions of every Acharya are like gold dust. They're invaluable. But the number one instructions for us are coming from Srila Prabhupada. Prabhupada said he made a special agreement with Krishna. On one occasion, Prabhupada was giving a class, and he was saying that you have to be 100% Krishna conscious in order to go back to Godhead. And all of the devotees were so downcast. My God, 100%, that's a lot, that's tough. And then Prabhupada said, okay, you have to be 90% Krishna conscious to go back to Godhead. Still, they're looking discouraged. Okay, 80% Krishna conscious. A little more perky, but still, And then Prabhupada said, okay, you have to be 70% Krishna conscious in order to going back to Godhead. And then Srila Prabhupada got up. He threw his chadra behind his back. And he said, because I've got the key to the back door to the spiritual world. So Srila Prabhupada has given us this formula. Chant 16 rounds, follow the 4 regulatory principles, and preach Krishna consciousness with your heart and soul. And that is Srila Prabhupada's arrangement with Krishna. Krishna sent Prabhupada here. He said, I want you to go. Prabhupada said, no, I don't want to go. Krishna said, go. Prabhupada said, I don't want to go down there. It's a terrible place. Krishna said, okay, I'll arrange everything. I'll send you people. I'll give you temples. I'll arrange everything for you. Just go there and write these books. And then you can come back. So this is Krishna's deal, Prabhupada's deal with Krishna. This is our special dispensation. That doesn't mean that we can take it for granted. We have to chant 16 good rounds. The devil is in the detail, attentive rounds. And that opens up a whole new can of worms. What does that mean? Yeah, we have to become lovers of Krishna. That's what it means to chant Hare Krishna. But this is Srila Prabhupada's special dispensation. Chant and preach, the two go very much together. The two are very much intertwined. So this is our mission. This is our boon. This is our boon from His Divine Grace, inspired by His Divine Grace. Thank you everyone for your kind attention. Srila Prabhupada ki. Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Sarasvati Thakur Prabhupada ki. Rukmini Dwarkadish ki. Jagnapalli Subhadramai ki. Shishi Gaurnitai ki. ISKCON New Dwarka Dham ki. Nittai Gaur Premanandi. Prabhupati Prabhu ki, Gaura Bhakta Brind ki.